Good afternoon, everybody. This is Red Baron. Here to do a piece today. I'm going to title this, These Are the Things That I Wish I Had Known. So, I have a friend. We're going to call him Reggie for lack of a better name. And Reggie told me, hey, I want to start playing Supremacy. What do you think? And I cautioned him. I said, let me know before you start because I need to tell you some things about the game. And of course, he, like all of us, he simply didn't listen. And he jumps right in and he starts playing. And a week or two later, he says, I've tried it. Yeah, I need to talk to you. I need to understand what I'm doing and what's going on. So this video is really targeted for beginners and moving into an intermediate level of play. There were three things that I really felt were critically game-changing in my early months of playing Supremacy. And when I saw them, it finally clicked why I was not getting the mechanics of the game and what was happening. So for anybody that's intermediate and beyond, this video really isn't targeted for you. This is going to be some low-level stuff, but you need to understand these things if you're a beginner. And I think these were major shortcomings that I just didn't get. So the first thing is morale. What is morale? What does it do to you? What does it do for you? And how do we work with morale? What's the deal with morale? So to start the discussion, I'm going to pick my capital province. And down here, I'm going to note I have a 100% morale on my capital. I'm going to pick a neighboring territory. My morale's at 93%. And then I'm going to pick some territory that I've conquered recently. This is at 65. This is at 58. Over to 40. Over to 39. Now, what does morale do, and how does it work for us and against us? Morale does some strange things for us. First off, if I pick a territory and I'm building something, morale of a territory will determine how fast a unit can build. So even with the same structure, if I pick my province here that's my capital, I have a 20-hour build time. And if I pick this nearby, it's a 21-hour build time. That's down at 93%. And if I pick up here, it's 96%. It's back in the 20 and 47 minutes. Your morale directly impacts your ability to produce. Now, it isn't just production of a unit here. It's the production of your infantry. So the higher morale produces infantry faster. Additionally, if you watch resources, naturally your doubles increase more. But if I were to pick one iron, I'm producing 3,000 iron on a daily production. If I pick this one, I'm only producing 1,688. So you notice that morale is amazing in the impact that it has on your country. There's a second thing connected with that, though, and this is really big. If you saw the video that I posted regarding 6 things you should do on day change, specifically the morale of a unit. So I'm going to pick this infantry here. Notice he's 19.9 out of 20, and he's standing on a 97% province. He is at that health because when he built, he doesn't build at 100%. When a unit comes in, the unit is produced at the morale of the province. So if I produce a unit on this at 97%, he comes in at 97% health. Likewise over here, this poor little fella, he came in severely wounded. He happened before day change. His health is below 50%. So even though your provinces are producing troops, they're producing troops that are of low morale. So the morale of provinces is major to your country's health. Additionally, anytime a unit is standing on ground at day change, it is impacted by that morale. So let's talk about what happens with infantry, because this only applies to infantry in the aspect of morale increase or decrease. We're going to talk about some regions. So this works well. If I were to take this unit and I move him out onto the water for day change, this is the easiest one to understand at first. Any water province to a lone infantry that is not supported by anything else, if it has no naval vessels, if this unit is on the water at day change, it will trend and decay or improve toward 50%. So if you were to take this unit, you move him out to the water, and he stays there for a week. Every day, his health is heading towards 50%. That's the way water works. Likewise, if I move him onto Allied ground, if I'm standing on Allied ground, it trends toward 50%. Now, if I put him on enemy ground or neutral ground, it trends toward 50%. But here's the unique thing about your ground. If this unit is standing on 39% ground, he trends toward 39%. If this ground is 10%, he trends toward 10%. If it's 50, it trends towards 50. Your ground is the only ground that you can achieve healing above 50%. So if I take my units and I move them onto my 100% ground, they stand the best chance of the greatest amount of gain. And if I take the same units and move them onto 39% ground, they will be losing health. That's an important thing for you to understand as a beginner player. Your units standing on bad ground are losing health just by standing there. And I didn't understand that. I would conduct battles. I would leave my guys standing there. I would come back a day later, and they're weaker. And 2 days later, they're weaker. Now, another thing that's happening with your morale is it tends to be going up daily. Notice there's a green arrow right here. And notice it says that this is rising, and the target morale is 88. And notice that there are some factors involved. We're not going to get into those today. But you need to realize that your ground morale tends to be changing. Once it's at 100%, we're going to analyze this. Notice the target morale is 118. That's good. That means I have enough buildings and I'm in a good circumstance specifically because of my capital. My capital gives a plus 10 bonus. You want to get onto this solid ground for healing purposes. So the number one thing I wish I had understood earlier was the morale impact that our provinces and our other locations have on us. So there's moments, if this is 25% ground and I'm near day change, I'll step across the line and I'll stand in the red ground and I'll get the bonus that it's trending toward 50 rather than trending toward 25%. So morale impacts build speed. It impacts your infantry health. It impacts the health of what the infantry is produced. That doesn't apply to any mech. So cavalry, artillery, armored cars, all of those come out at 100%. But infantry is always impacted by the morale of the ground. And your morale is impacting your resource production. Last thing on morale that I'll mention is if you take a capital. When you conquer a capital, you get an automatic 10% bonus. All of your provinces that you own prior to that capital takedown increase by 10%, up to 100. So if you're at 92, it's still only going to go to 100. But if you've taken over ground recently, and it's at 25, 30, 35% morale, and you take a capital, that instantly gives you a 10%. That's nationwide. So the bigger your country, the bigger those capital takedowns are. So that's the first one, morale. Second is really, I think this was one of the bigger things that I had to get used to in this game, is movement speed. Movement speed really gets a little tricky to watch and to learn and understand. When you get it, it just all makes sense. When you don't, I can play against players and tell you, this player has no idea about movement speed. So the first thing that you need to understand about movement speed is any stack on the screen, any individual stack will only and ever move as fast as the slowest unit. So, for instance, this AI right here, he has a balloon coupled with infantry. I see this frequently with young players. They will leave all of those units together and they'll move the stack together. Notice the movement speed is at 25. You'll see stack speeds raise and lower based on what the movement internal is. So right now, if I take this stack can move at 36. And if I move it out here, that's a movement speed of 36. But if I split the armored car off, the armored car is moving at 72. So it's important to realize there's moments where splitting your stack will greatly increase your ability to get your troops around the map. I think a lot of players tend to get lazy. They grab them and they send them, not realizing that splitting them can be extremely advantageous. So that's point number one. But point number two is even bigger, because when we look at a movement speed of a unit, we forget or don't know that when I cross onto other ground, it changes my speed. So I want to display something that's going on down here. Right now, I have another player that has not declared war on me. This individual has been sneaking up, coming through the AI, and he's calling in some troops down here, so he has a mobilization. I have no idea what those are. But when I look at this, my first observation as a seasoned player, that's a really long road. I love long roads for defense. And here's why. When I'm traveling on my ground, I move at 100%. So if I take my unit to here, that's a 3.5-hour travel. If I move to here, that's a 2-hour travel. When I round the corner, everything I go into blue, when I'm on Allied ground, I'm moving at 50%. My speed slows down. I didn't realize that at first. So we look at these distances and we think, well, you know, coming to this city, that's a 3.5-hour travel. But if you notice around this bend, that's 3 hours, 45 minutes. It's only 2 hours to here. So it's a longer distance and I go in a shorter time. That's because this original leg is at 100% and then this leg's at 50%. Now, this is where it gets really important. When I come across here, that's 100%. When I cross this line and I go into neutral or enemy territory, I'm moving at 33%. I'm 1/3 the speed. There's a reason that I'm giving you the 50% and the 33%. Because mentally, when I see defending the city, I come to this line, I see this, and I go, that's 3.5 hours. Well, 3.5 hours times 3, that's a 10.5-hour return distance. So if he's going to take his 24 infantry that you see here, and he hits this border, I have more than 9 hours before he can hit the city center. So understanding that the long road into my country, that is highly defendable because the movement speed is going to change depending on the ground that you're on. I want to demonstrate and illustrate something that was a little shocking to me early on, and I'm going to use this armored car. This armored car, if I were to move it to this northernmost city, that's a 2-hour run up to the north. And coming down to St. Paul in this lower city, that's another 3 hours. So if I were to station this armored car on this double wood, it's 5 hours from here to here. That's a 5-hour trip. And we already saw that's a 9-hour advance from him. I can literally be hiding my armored cars in the fog of war. Notice you got this grayed out area. I can see what the troop is, but I don't know what the actual stack count is. So knowing that he has a given distance that he can see, he sees I have some troop movement, but he can't even see what I have here. Even if he could, let's say he had a balloon or something that he's watching that distance, I can hide armored cars 4, 5, 6 hours away. And as long as I'm watching and I'm responsive, I can have a massive amount of defense in here because this leg is so long and the movement speed cuts down so much. So the first thing I wish I had known, I wish I understood the way morale impacted my country. Second thing, I really didn't understand movement speed. And it was a mystery to me, like, how come like I send an attack in and this guy can always intercept me? And conversely, I was scrambling and not understanding how to defend my countries. I'll look at my move distances and I'll calculate like how long does it really take him to get here? And it's not that hard to see. Now, the last thing, this was really big too. This was actually an embarrassing point. I was confessing to King Owen. There was a point where I had been playing well over a year, and I actually didn't realize that there was a mechanism that could be exploited against me. If I pick a stack, I'm going to pick these 42 infantry. I want you to notice that, of course, I'm not at full health because these are the guys I had from the beginning of the game. So they started at 70%. They've been increasing because I got them on good ground. But notice the attack and the defense damage. As a new player, I started getting tuned into. I watched. I found out, aha, okay, armored cars defend better than they attack. And cavalry, they attack better than they defend. And so we get this mindset of like, this is an attack unit and this is a defense unit. Well, when you start combining stacks, you need to watch that. Don't arrive at conclusions because frequently I'll mix stacks just for the sake of two purposes. One, I may want it there just for the extra bonus because, 33 guys are going to attack, but I'm going to throw in the armored cars because it's adding a decent amount of attack. But it's also adding a lot of hit points. And when I get through this city, I may get a free run with some armored cars and snipe this thing really fast. But the other thing I didn't know, this was embarrassing, and I told Owen, we had an internal free-for-all, and I had a major stack coming across the map, and I attacked another stack. And I picked this stack, and I said, okay, well, his defense is at 108. And I'm like, okay, well, he defends at a 108, and I attacked at like, let's say I attacked at a 160. And I felt really good. I'm like, okay, 160 against a 108. I looked at the numbers, looked at the hit points. Here's what I was neglecting. I didn't realize that when you're on the attack and you initiate an attack, if I take this stack and I say I want to attack there, I will only hit at 48. But if you're defending, you can actually choose to counterattack. What I neglected in the stack that I was attacking, he had a lot of cavalry. And he might have defended at a 108, but he returned fire at like a 185. And not paying attention and not realizing the attacker is always forced into attacking. The defender can choose to counterattack. And that was rather embarrassing. I didn't lose the battle, but I lost a lot of troops because I didn't realize what I was walking into. So those are 3 things I wish I had known from day one. I would suggest that beginners get used to playing with that, especially your movement speeds. Watch that closely. I should recap the movement speed. Those are broad generalizations. Specifically, stack morale, alternate unit speeds. For instance, if you mix in this hero, he moves slower. Do not come to assumptions and conclusions. So the 100%, 50%, 33%, those are broad generalizations. Don't take those to the bank. Always do your math. Always look and see what the conclusion is. Thanks a lot. This is Red Baron signing off.